Welcome to Tracks to Success, brought to you by Presentation Partners. This is the podcast that brings you inspiring people and their inspiring stories. How did they find their way to the top, and how can their path help you do the same? Here's your host, network broadcaster, executive, and entrepreneur, Kraig Kann.
Right now on this edition of Tracks to Success, you'll hear from an entrepreneur, an author, a speaker, a coach, a consultant, and a philanthropist, all wrapped up in one energizing package. Put the titles in any order you want, but each has had a lasting impact. His track to success might have started as a serviceman for the U.S. Army, or maybe it was as a professional soccer player and then coach winning championships. Learning with every step, he pivoted from sports to the business world, where sales became his calling, until he jumped off the tracks and became an entrepreneur, a clothing company, and then to a lead role with an oil and gas service company, which led to a spin-off to many other things. CEO of Leadercast, and now the CEO of the Sensational Group. He's also co-founded the Speakers Guild of America and now speaks, inspires, and writes, having authored multiple books. So how does a man who can't seem to sit still and find something new to share with each audience find the time to keep strong to his singular mission of serving others? His name is Duane Cummings. His inspiring story and this edition of Tracks to Success starts now. Well, this is a true pleasure. Duane Cummings, thanks so much for the time today. The simple question is just how the heck are you? I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, I'm doing great, with the exception of a little bit of facial hair and length, going on. I haven't been grooming as well as normal, but I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. It's a privilege and honor to be here today.
Well, it's great to have you. Let's tell our audience the truth, shall we? We met through some social media connection. That's how it happened. That led to a meeting that you and I had in Atlanta. I have followed you ever since. Always impressed by one word that I would say, my opinion, describes you. And that word is serving. Is that a good word? What word would you use?
If that's the only word on my headstone when this is all over, I would be very, very humbled and happy. Yeah, for sure. Serving is a perfect word. Thank you for that. That's a very nice gift.
Well, I want to start today with where I think I'm going to end up anyway. If you look up Duane Cummings on Google, or you do a search on social media, any of the platforms that you're on, you're going to see a sensational life. Now that covers a whole lot of things, right? That could be topics we talk about for a long time that don't just apply to you, but apply to other people. Boil it down for us. What does that mean?
I think it's different for every person, right? So it's kind of like the definition of success. Anyone can have a sensational life, from the person that's just a gardener and happy with what they do and fulfilled and filled with joy, to the CEO of a large Fortune 500 company or a great athlete or celebrity. Anyone can have a sensational life. It's really not about my sensational life. It's about you finding your own sensational life.
So let's back up then. Let's back way up. Does the sensational you, Duane Cummings, begin at age 5 or 6, or when did that all take place? Take us back. Where did you grow up, and tell us about your family?
Wow. Okay. So we're going to dig deep. So to this day, this is kind of like a sit on the couch session.
Yep.
To this day, I don't know who my real father is. So my mom was married to a guy who was in the military. So I was kind of a military brat as a child. I was born in Augsburg, Germany, but mainly grew up West Coast, SoCal, and Arizona, and bounced around a lot. Single mom, working hard, that kind of thing. I did end up with a stepfather for a while. But just kind of bounced around. And I think that's where I developed my outgoing personality, because you're always trying to fit in, right?
Yeah.
Have people like you. And you're always trying to make the best of a bad situation. Hence why I kind of over time just developed this mentality of you can make the greatest life you want, even if a lot of it as a kid was in my own head. When we used to do free fun Fridays. So we would take a coat hanger, go down to the laundromat and dig for quarters under the machines. And I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. I didn't know I was poor. So I really think I put it into context and into words as an adult. And when I had my own two children, and I realized that you're going to have ups and downs, and everything comes in kind of seasons, but you can make your own sensational life. And the word sensational,
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes it's not used in the greatest of terms, sensationalized this or whatever, but it was a word for me that no one else was really using, and it just fit. So I liked it. I kind of just stuck it on what I do. And I believe we are, the words that we use. And if I just said, hey, I'm going to have a good life, there's nothing wrong with that. But a sensational life makes you think a little differently. So, yeah.
We're going to ask some questions, maybe of each other. Who knows where this is all going to go? But I always ask
Right?
leadership people and speakers who, motivate, inspire, empower, if they or others might have seen something in you at an early age that might have said, yep, that's what this guy or this woman is destined for. In other words, if we did a little poll of all your friends at an early age, would they have said, Duane Cummings, he's going to be that guy. He's going to be author. He's going to be entrepreneur. He's going to be speaker. He's going to be motivator, CEO, all that stuff. What would they have said?
Right. It's really funny that you say that, because I'm still connected with like people I played kickball in 4th grade with. And and we still see people from my whole lifespan, good, bad, and indifferent. And they always say, like, I didn't know what you were going to do. I didn't know if you were going to be a big time comedian or an actor or a politician, but I knew you were going to do something with other people of some kind of magnitude. Because I had a kind of an evolution early on in my life. I was always trying to please people, make them happy. So I would go way overboard. And then in the middle of kind of my life, as I started maturing, I focused myself. I was like a survivor, and I got to make it about me. So I was trying to, those 80s and 90s, grab what you can and go as far as you can. And then I really started settling into my own and made it about other people. So I think if you polled pretty much everybody in my life, they wouldn't be able to put their finger on what I was going to do. But now where I'm at in my life, they all go, oh, that makes total sense. Yeah. Yeah.
People pleasers sometimes, if you're like reflecting on yourself, and I've been told that's me almost to a fault. I put other people first. A lot of times I don't think about myself. How do you look at that? I mean, we want to help other people. At the same time, we can't get lost in who we are or what we're trying to do and give ourselves any love.
Right. So you said we might ask each other questions. I'll ask you one real quick. Do you think you can please other people too much?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, well,
from a time commitment standpoint, from a saying yes all the time. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And so I believe the same thing. So it's about not compromising your own vision, your own plan, and what you're doing, but it can't be at the expense of other people's liberty, freedom, et cetera. Right. So that's the balance we're always walking is what's good for me detrimental to other people, neutral to other people, or could be also good for other people. But everybody uses that same adage. You get on the plane, they say, if it starts going down, put your own mask on. I'm very blessed and fortunate to work with a lot of aging care workers, from CEOs on down. And one of the things I find in that industry is they're so concerned with taking care of the elderly that they let themselves go in a lot of instances, their own mental health, physical health, et cetera. And that's not going to help anybody, because if you run out of gas at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to help anyone anyway. So, but my wife might say that I can always please her more. No, I'm just kidding.
They always do that.
Yeah, right.
You're always going to have that never-ending struggle with that. Let's talk about your resume, your bio a little bit. It includes soccer at a professional level. Yeah. I think even more interesting, and we'll get to that, it includes the military. How'd you get there? What did you learn from that?
Well, the fact that, Trax is in this podcast title is interesting, because some people get on those two rails and I think you had a guest, Mike Tirico is a good example. I think you mentioned that he was, announcing into a spoon as a child. Yeah. He knew, like, he was on those two rails and that was his track. I think I had a lot of switch people, men or women, in my life that moved me from track to track. And in my teen years, I played 5 sports in high school. I was outgoing, in a lot of the clubs, but I kind of got out of control a little bit, and got a college scholarship to play soccer, and spent more time at the beach than in class. So I got those 4 amazing choices: Army, Air Force, Navy, or Marines, by my mom. And so she said, you're the alpha male in the house and I can't control you. You need to go have somebody else sort you out real quick. So I went in the Army, and I went for the least amount of time. And it was fantastic for me. And when you have to sign your name on a piece of paper that says, I'll lay my life down for my fellow countrymen, it's really eye-opening. And then, of course, the training they put you through, et cetera. So thank you for asking about that. I respect all veterans, no matter what branch, and veterans' families and spouses and that kind of thing. A lot of people think it's because the guy that was on my birth certificate as my father, who was in the military, that's why I went. But no, really, I went to get my butt out of trouble. And I was fortunate to be able to play like on the All-Army soccer team. And I did other things, but I also got to continue my soccer career.
So professional soccer, right? I mean, you kind of got whipped into shape a little bit in the military. Professional soccer, did you whip everybody else? Were you the aggressive guy? Tell me about your soccer career, because it wasn't just a playing career. It was a coaching career as well.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. I spent a lot of my life in that sport. I never thought it would be the sport. And in the 80s, we were after the NASL, and the MLS hadn't really boomed. So there was these weird independent leagues, and like some of it would be considered AAA. The USL, which is still around now, had started then. And so you play indoor maybe in the wintertime because the MISL was going on. So you play indoor in the wintertime and outdoor in the summer and spring. And I was just kind of hodgepodging a career together. I tried to go overseas and play a little bit. And Japan had an okay league, but you just weren't going to make it as an American like in England. It wasn't going to happen. And the money wasn't fantastic like they can make good money nowadays. So I did that, played. I had a few knee injuries along the way. And then I had one when I was playing in the USL for the Oklahoma City Slickers that just kind of ended my career. And I was very tight with the team. As a player, I was not the best player. I've always been a student of the game. So I really understood the technical aspects. I played and I put in my minutes, but I was not a star by any means. But I think it helped me transfer to becoming assistant coach, and then a head coach, and then a GM. And then, I was so into it that we owned Louisiana Indoor Soccer Arenas and the New Orleans Rage indoor team. And then I moved from coaching pro to college, which is kind of a weird shift. Some people do it. In football, they've done it. But so then I was an associate AD at St. Gregory's University, and I've been very blessed to still stay involved. I've got literally hundreds of players in youth, high school, college, pro that played for me and now have gone on and coached.
So did you go back to the college ranks to coach because you felt like you could deliver more long-term? In other words, make a bigger stamp on someone's life? It would seem to me, based on everything you've done, that would have been the mindset.
Yeah, so that's very, very intuitive of you, because I thought I had already arrived. Like the year before I went to coaching college, we lost the national championship to Atlanta. And so I was really peaking as a professional coach and trying to figure out where I was going to go. And a guy that was our captain had gone out to this St. Gregory's University, and he called me and he said, hey, we got basketball and baseball and softball and all these sports, but we don't have soccer. I want you to come and start the programs here, men and women, and I want you to put that zest and enthusiasm in it. And it's going to be your way now to kind of give back to all these younger people and really mold them. And I had coached high school a couple seasons, so I liked that, but I didn't like the fact that you didn't get them for the whole year. So it just became intriguing that I was going to get these athletes for 4 years, and I could kind of mold them, and I could pour into them and, show them all the things that I might have done wrong that they might be able to do right to stay on those tracks. So yeah, it was amazing. And I did it for almost 7 years. So.
The opportunity to influence kids at that level, be it high school or college, is it's inspiring. I mean, you see it in their eyes. You're giving them experiences. I love it. I get a chance to do it as well. I could totally see why you would want to go back and cover that age bracket. So this journey, you talked about the tracks and the switchers, if you will, post-military, post-soccer. How in the world did you just switch gears and go into big business or business at any level? Who steered you that way, if you will?
Wow. So this was a defining moment in my life. At the time, my now 30-year-old son was about 9, I guess. And when you're a college coach, you're recruiting and you're in season and you have your off season and you're traveling and doing camps around the country, et cetera. And I was on these advisory panels for, Adidas, et cetera. And one day I was getting ready to miss his birthday, which is in June, for like the 6th straight year. Yeah. And so he says, Dad, when are you going to love me and my brother as much as you love your players? And that silence that you hear now, I had no words. So I went in, I talked to the guy that was our vice president or provost that next day. I said, we're going to transition. This is going to be my last season. I got to pour into my family. I'm pouring into everybody else's family and I forgot mine. So that thing about, we talked in the early part of this podcast about giving too much of yourself and pleasing other people. I had forgot about the ones that were most important that were around me. Not that other kids aren't important, but you get one chance to raise your own children. Yeah. So there was a guy that I had coached in college. His dad was owned a big building manufacturing material supply company. And we had become friends over those years. And he said, man, I talked to him. He was a mentor. I confided in him. And he said, man, you know what, with your skills and your talent, you could be my sales director instantly because you can coach a team and you can get in meetings. And if you talk to me into having my kid come to your school and paying all that tuition, you can talk to anybody and anything. Right. So I moved into building material sales, was that first jump right off the bat. Yeah. And I moved through some different companies, Hunter Douglas. I don't know who your sponsors are, so I apologize if I mentioned names that I shouldn't mention. But a couple different large companies. And I had some early success there because of my probably background in military and pleasing people and athletics. And so I garnered companies like Home Depot as accounts and Lowe's as accounts. And so I got these executive headhunters that are calling constantly, and I moved through that rank as fast as I could. And along the way, and I don't know if you want to jump to this, but I was having my own clothes made because I'm going to meet these top execs, which turned into a clothing company. Yeah.
I had read about that. That's
right.
You're good. The synergy is great because that's one of my next questions. I want to say this. I can totally relate to the all of a sudden silence you had about the comments from your kids because I have twins. They're now 22 and they were born the week of the U.S. Open, which also happens to be Father's Day. And last you knew, if you worked at the Golf Channel, you were pretty busy during the week of the U.S. Open. And I would miss birthday parties and I would miss Father's Day. And after a while, talking about sales, you're trying to sell the concept of why you have to do one thing versus another. And it just becomes tearing at your heartstrings. It's not easy. And you want family first. Yeah. You also have to make a living. You got to figure out what you do. So I totally understand that. And now in what I do, I have that flexibility. You can't get those other years back, but we always adapted. We always tried to figure it out. And so in your sales world, right? Clothing company, very cool. And then also oil business. Now, you were an equity partner in an oil company. So you're not like the guy from Saudi Arabia or the sheik. You're working hard and you're doing what exactly? Because I haven't bumped into a whole lot of guys that said, I was an equity partner in oil.
Yeah, well, you got to move to Texas or Oklahoma or someplace like that to bump into those people. But so through that whole building a private label clothing company and selling it off and just my adventures and having communication like this with people like you, I was asked to speak all the time. And I had a consultancy that I started advising people on scaling businesses. And so I was consulting these two guys that began a company. They were from West Oklahoma. They borrowed like $5,000 on some cattle and an old truck. And they had run it up to like $50 million valuation pretty quick. But it was, cousins working and out of control and 10 checkbooks. And they weren't, nothing personal. They'd say the same thing. They weren't as organized probably as they needed to be. And so because I had scaled my clothing company, I'd learned a lot of things along the way, what to do, what not to do. So I was consulting them, which turned into, I thought it was going to be like for a month of meetings. And it turned into becoming a partner and being the active COO and preparing us to sell, which took about 3 years. And then we did sell to a publicly traded company for like a couple $100 million. It was kind of,
I was going to say big dollars. I know where this is going.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And so, yeah.
So are you the guy then who, look, there's two ways you could go with this. You could have this conversation. There's the guy or the woman that's a part of a company that sells, right? Big dollars, as you mentioned. And then all of a sudden you've got this money coming your way and you're afforded the luxury of basically doing nothing if you want. You don't have to work. And then there are the other people that say, I can't be that guy. I can't be that woman. I've got to go do something meaningful, etc. So I know which guy you are because your give back and your tracks have taken you into another way. But in other words, How did you decide you wanted to be the give back guy instead of the person who could say, I'm going to take a break. I don't have to do anything anymore?
Yeah, so there are two ways you can go. You can go down that road of I'm going to sit around, or you can go down that road or I'm going to do something. And I've just always been wired to do something, being active and being within, around people. I'm a people person. And so, even after the clothing company, I had the opportunity to just sit around, but I didn't. That's when I picked up golf, actually. I was playing 36 a day. I was around people playing bridge and bunco, but that wasn't going to work for me. So then I just got back into it. My consultancy picked up. I had written a first book. I'll never be that person to sit in. The mentors along the way of my life that continue to tell me, you got to give back, you got to give back, you got to give back. Those are the people that are always in the back of my head saying, what are you doing for other people?
Okay, perfect transition. Mentorship and the topic of entrepreneur. So I talk a lot about business cards because, we get so excited about it, right? And when you run your own company, you can kind of put whatever you want on there. And if you're working for somebody else, you're actually excited about getting that first business card.
Yeah.
We all go back to when we got the first business card. But at the beginning of the day, to me, this is me, those titles are almost meaningless because while we fight for that, if we take an entrepreneurial mindset, in other words, if that business card says Kraig Kann entrepreneur or Duane Cummings entrepreneur, those are the people that at the beginning of the day, whether we're working for somebody else or working for ourselves, we have this concept, this idea in our head that we're not afraid to fail. We're going to push our ideas at all costs. We're going to try to convince people, and we're going to have no fear. We're going to go for it, and we want to make a difference. How important is that entrepreneurial spirit, not just to you, but in perhaps what you share with other people, that they should carry that mindset?
Yeah, I do think there are some people that aren't built for that. They're risk averse. And by the way, the person that's been delivering our mail for years and they're comfortable with that route and that lifestyle, I'm very grateful for them. But I think for me and my personality, and for a lot of people, if they want to accomplish certain things, they want to, create the new iPhone or whatever it is, you're going to have that mindset. And you use the F word that we can use in public. It's a 4-letter F word that it's got an A and an I in the middle and it ends in an L that I don't use very often. I know it's weird because I just look at it as I got a result. Like, I just got a result. And you do, in my opinion, have to push the boundaries. I had a mentor one time that said, hey, go back and look at all your business cards that you've had, if you collected them, which I did. And he said, now turn them over and I want you to write the names down of all the people that you impacted. And I want you to write down all the things projects you were involved that were significant. And for me, it was like, oh, okay, well, and that was a shift for me. So when I moved on to being an entrepreneur, I tell people all the time, I apologize. I hope it doesn't seem arrogant. I don't carry a card. I'm really easy to find. My life is so different that my title's different every day. And I think there's no way I could accomplish the things I accomplished if I didn't get up every day, take those risks. You go to bed with these amazing ideas. A lot of people get up the next morning and they shove them to the side. They're like, that's not really possible. I don't know why I was thinking that. I don't. I take those ideas and just go for them. And I think to have the kind of life that I live and that a lot of people are dreaming about, you pretty much got to go after it.
So for the people who feel trapped, some of our listeners might feel trapped, right? Do I work for somebody else or do I work for myself? What would you tell people who have their gut saying that I could really potentially be my own boss? But in their mind is telling them, take the safer route. I've got a kid. I've got multiple kids. I've got a family. I just need to work for somebody else where I know what my paycheck is. What do you tell those people?
Well, our beliefs drive everything. So if they were raised in a mentality that says you got to be responsible, right? You got to have the job. It's got to have the insurance. It's got to have all those, comes every 2 weeks. But those things can change in a heartbeat. You just never know what can happen. So I tell those people, if you've got a heart leading you in one direction, like something's tugging at you, you got to acknowledge that, right? Otherwise you're going to have regret as you get older and you're going to say, oh man, I wish I would do that. But you also can't just tell the family, hey, by the way, we're getting rid of everything because I've got this dream and we're going to go do it and we're going to roll the dice, because they want somebody maybe consistent in their life. So you start with one foot in your solid place and then you start inching that other foot over. It's kind of like if you have 1 foot on the dock and 1 foot on the boat. But once you decide to put that foot on the boat and it starts moving away, you're going to end up in the water if you don't make some decisions. So you do have to plan, and you've got to be a good communicator with those people around you that are going to be impacted by your decision. But I believe, you're going to stay on the dock until you put a foot out there on a boat. until you step out and go. And then once you step out and go, you get to this point where you've got to be committed, or you do just fall. And I think that's what happens with most people. They get so far extended that then they can't get back to their safe place, and they can't go forward, and they end up falling. So start with a safe place, take a step in the direction you want to go, have some people around you, some safety nets, some people that have made those mistakes before that can mentor you, right? And then when you make the decision and you commit, just fully commit and don't go back.
Duane Cummings is our guest on this edition of Tracks to Success. Tracks to Success is brought to you by Presentation Partners, visual storytellers passionate about connecting presenters with their audience. You and I met at Leadercast in Atlanta.
Yeah.
On Fridays, you would bring in a speaker, an outside speaker, and you gave me that opportunity. I'm grateful for that. That's where we really got to spend some time together. You were the CEO, so tell me, not just about the company, but what was your mission in helping others through Leadercast?
Well, it was really nice because we had sold a oil and gas company, and I knew I had been involved in that company as a host of their Leadercast labs, and I was in their library of videos as a leader. And their mission is to, help leaders of all levels be a leader worth following. And I felt like even though I didn't have to have the word leader in there, I wanted to help other people be their best selves. I know that sounds cliche. Cliches are there for a reason. I wanted to help other people step into their best selves or chase their dream or whatever it was. So it just really aligned when they asked me to be CEO there. And that first word you started with serving, I have always kind of believed in serving other people. And as a CEO, I wanted to redefine it a little bit. Mm-hmm. So Nourishment Fridays, which you were involved with, which I'm still very grateful you came. People were impacted and still to this day talk about you. We were pouring in, and I kind of believe in that inverted pyramid versus the normal pyramid. So as the CEO, I kind of relabeled it constantly elevating others. I sit at the bottom. And if I do a good job about giving people the tools, resources, what they need to accomplish what they are supposed to accomplish, and they feel good about it, then we're probably going to do really well as a company. And I learned that from people that were around me that kind of poured that into me. So it wasn't like this, epiphany I had one day, I'm going to show up and be this kind of CEO. But that atmosphere really allowed me to do that. And because we were serving other leaders around the world, it just was the perfect fit.
Yeah, it was. You're a connector. By the way, I was nourished by that opportunity as well. How important is networking in your mind? So I don't care whether we're talking to college students who are about to graduate and need to learn the importance of doing that before they ever take off into the real world, or somebody who's already in the professional arena and they're trying to continue that climb up. How important is networking, and how should we really use it in your mind?
Well, I believe that it's incredibly important, right? So there's different things like your network is your net worth and all those other things that are said. But the people that you meet are the people that are going to impact your life. And they're going to be the ones that, open doors for you, or you open doors for them. And so it's about your mentality. My mentality after getting to know a friend of mine, Bob Berg, he wrote a series, the Go Giver series, Go Giver Influencer, Go Giver Sells More. He is about giving to others, giving without this expectation of return. And so in networking, I'm always helping people. So I might go somewhere and somebody says, I'm an actor. And somebody else says, hey, I'm getting ready to do my own commercial series for my car dealership. And I'm saying, hey, you guys, you should get to know each other, or you girls should get to know each other, because there might be an opportunity there. And then I just leave it. I plant that seed. I give to other people, show up when I can, pour into other people when they're needing it, whether it's, helping them launch a company, social media, et cetera. And that seed always comes back and germinates in my favor. And I don't do it so that will happen. I mean, there are people that I met 20 years ago that are still actively in my life. There's people I met 2 years ago that I introduced to somebody else 6 months ago that they've got their own thing going now. And they've got something cool going just because I made an introduction. So I think it's priceless, because whether you want to believe this or not, if you're into AI, artificial intelligence, doesn't matter. People are what makes our world go round, what makes business work. And so if you are networking with people and connecting people and finding out what their values and strengths are and what their desires and their dreams are, and you're helping move that along in any way, shape, or form, you are doing the right work. I mean, we're in a technology age right now. Try to have anything happen without a network, right?
Right. No doubt. Your network goes down, you're in big trouble.
Yeah.
I always kind of preach or talk about the importance of not meeting people for what they can do for you, but hoping to share what you might be able to give to them, which requires listening and learning at the same time before you can ever lead to help them. Now, you founded the Speakers Guild of America, co-founded it, which gives people a chance to be found, if you will. There's a directory, top speakers, et cetera. So what's separate, and you are a speaker and a very good one, and I'm learning stuff just sitting here right now. I'm taking notes, by the way. What separates the great speaker, in your mind, from the good to average speaker?
Well, that's a pretty loaded question. I'll make it simple. Speaking is just one form of communication. There's nonverbal, et cetera. But if you can get a message into somebody's head and heart to where it resonates with them, they can be empathetic with you, and they can take it away and it impacts their life, that's a great speaker. We've all gone to conferences and heard people speak, and then 2 days later, we're like, I really like that person, but I don't even remember what they said. I don't remember if they gave us an acronym or 3 points. But then the speakers that, I have a dream, what Martin Luther King was talking about, right? When he said, I have a dream, and he shared that dream, and you bought into that dream. And so great speakers have a way of I always say they take who you are apart and put you back together in a different way when you're done hearing them.
Yeah, I think they think about outcome. How can I impact people walking out the door? And don't talk at people, but talk with them. Give them something that they can not only remember, but repeat and share with other people to create a following. Now, you've traveled the world speaking, but pride yourself. I've heard this, I've read this, never giving the same presentation twice. How in the world do you accomplish that?
Well, yeah, and I got to put a little bit of an asterisk there. There are things that I will share, or stories that I might share in more than one group. Like, it's not all original works. But I think it's back to that initial word of serving, right? So whatever audience I'm in front of, whether it be big, small, huge, whatever, I'm going to do my research. I'm going to find out what it is they need, right? So what problem are they trying to solve? What are they afraid of? What are their dreams? What are they working on? What value can I bring to them through either my personal experience or using other people's stories? And then I craft and tailor something that hopefully resonates with them, because everybody has different language in their business. CPAs have certain acronyms they use, and doctors, and salespeople, entrepreneurs, business people. So if I go in there with one canned speech, it might land on a few people, but it doesn't have the same opportunity to serve people. And if I kind of think of it like the restaurant business, if I went to a certain country, I would try to cook their food. So they would, it would be in their taste buds would be used to it. They would have that same emotion. And if I went to another country, I'd cook that food. And if I went to another country, I'd cook that food. So yeah, I just, I do the research, and I figure out what those people need, and do a lot of, pre-production questioning of the people that are going to attend if I can, and the administrators and the industry. And then I just show up and try to serve. So yeah.
In addition to hosting this podcast, Kraig leads the Kann Advisory Group, focused on elevating communication for companies and individuals. Company consulting, empowering team and individual workshops, mind-altering webinars, and Kraig's inspiring keynotes for your conference or company meeting. They're all on the menu of services. Kann Advisory helps companies clarify their message, helps professionals build and showcase their brand, and helps everyone present their best selves. So if you're the leader of a team or company looking to give your employees a game-changing one-day experience, or an individual who wants to become a speaker and presenter that gets other people talking, visit cannadvisory.com. And when you do connect, make sure to mention the Tracks to Success podcast to receive a special discount on any of the Kann Advisory services. That's cannadvisory.com. Now back to the interview.
We're talking with Duane Cummings, also author, and you've brought that up before. So tell me the why behind the what, which is the books, and why you decided to write one and then another one.
Well, I never thought I'd be a writer. by any means. It was another one of those switch on the tracks. But I was sharing my stories and the lessons that I'd learned and the experiences. And my wife actually challenged me one day. She was like, well, so what if your kids don't remember? Why don't we leave them something? And it started out as a journal. And then it was like, well, why don't you tell them a story? People love to learn by stories. So all the books in this series I'm on are written in parable form, but they include real people. And you can kind of figure out who I am in the book or who my wife is in the book. And it's just lessons. So the first one was kind of me falling on my face 30 plus years ago, making the mistakes and kind of get my act in order. The next one was kind of a leadership journey. The spouse one is getting ready to come out, which is about relationships and then parenting and mentorship and entrepreneurship. It's just the arc of my life. And it's really not about me. I except for my name on the front of the book, you don't know it's me. There are other real people in these books that you could Google and you'd know, but it's about like what we need to leave behind, the legacy. Yeah, the legacy. And the legacy originally was just for my kids. Like, here's what I learned in case we don't get to talk. And for my grandkids, I have 2 granddaughters now. Like, if we don't get a chance to share this information, here it is in print form. Yeah.
So was there a hurdle that you had to overcome to say, I'm not so sure that anybody really cares what I have to say or wants to read my story? Because a lot of people, they don't love talking about themselves. They're not really comfortable with storytelling about themselves. Yet at the same time, that is how we connect with people. That is how we influence people. So was there a hurdle for you that somebody might not want to buy or read your book that you had to overcome?
Well, it's interesting because that wasn't the motivation for me to write the books. I probably didn't see it that way, although I was still apprehensive and I was like, this is crud. This is not very good. I can't believe anybody, my grandkids, my wife, anybody gonna read it. And my wife would be my first proofreader and she was like, hey, this isn't bad. And so then my friends were like, so, let me read some. And they were like, hey, this isn't bad. I was like, really? You guys are just saying that. You still haven't bought into it yet, right? Because you just don't have enough evidence. I'm not an attorney, but evidence or validation or proof. And then when I got some ARC readers and some betas out there and some publishers and, agents, and people were like, hey, you're doing this pretty well. Not because I was a great writer, but because I had other people in my life that were great storytellers and knew how to write. And so they gave me guidance. Then I was like, okay, maybe we're onto something. So after the first book came out and the sales were crazy. And to this day, people are still buying that book and sharing it and giving it as gifts. And I've got some crazy ambassadors that, email me and go, hey, do you remember when you said this in that chapter? And I got to go back and read the chapter. I'm like, man, I forgot I said that. It's been crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. But there are, to answer your question, the hurdles, if you're going about that traditional route of getting an agent, getting a publisher and trying to be a New York Times bestseller, that industry is a tough one. Yeah. It's a tough one for hurdles. Yeah.
Yeah. I promised I'd get back to where I started. And a couple more things before I let you go. With Living a Sensational Life, that's your company. If you look on your website, that's what it's all about. So what is it you want to do with that? Long-term, you said legacy, so I'm using that word right now, long-term legacy. Is this your thing moving forward, or are you open to doing new things if somebody came to you? Are you committed to this?
Well, yes, I'm committed to that. I'll do it till the day I die. And I don't think it has to be a this or, it can be a this and. Right. And that's what's always happened in my life. I don't say no to a lot of things if they're congruent or in line with my purpose. So I don't care if somebody says, hey, I'm going to start a ditch digging company and this is why we're doing it. And we're going to make an impact and we're going to, we're going to be a triple bottom line company. Are you interested? I'm going to listen because I don't, it's not about ego anymore. It's not about, can I get to the CEO level, climbing a ladder, achievement. Now it's about giving back, serving others. And so I'll do that to the end of my days, and I'll do it with multiple different people. Every time I meet new people, I'm learning things. I'm understanding new things, understanding different cultures. When I get to be around people like you that have been in my life for a number of years, I'm always reinvigorated and I'm, inspired, and you help me sharpen my saw. So I think it's a this and I'll do it all if I can, by making sure that I also take care of myself and the people around me.
Flattered by that. This is not my final question, but let's put this out there. Where can people learn more about you, your mission, and your business?
Okay. I always jokingly say I'm Googleable, but you've got to spell it right. Because if you don't spell it Duane, as in Duane, Cummings, Cummings, you're going to get it wrong. But DuaneCummings.com is my website. All the links to like Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn, all that's there. I write blogs sporadically. They're there. I do YouTube videos. There's channel. So pretty easy to find. You can get books there. Although I have social media managers and handlers and people around all the time, I do my very best to answer directly. Yeah. It might take me a few days, but if somebody sends me something, I'm humbled that somebody cares enough to talk about me. Early on in people's rise, you just hope somebody even wants to buy your book or recognizes you. And then sometimes when you gain a little bit of success, you forget where you came from. I'll never forget where I came from. So I'm accessible. Reach out.
Okay, perfect segue to this. This podcast is called Tracks to Success. You know that. What's the biggest lesson you have learned along your own professional journey that you can share with others or already do share?
Yeah, the easiest one for me is it's not about me. It's hard because we're always trying to take care of ourselves, take care of our family, fight for the next promotion, come up with the next great idea, speak in a meeting and say something meaningful, come up with a great marketing campaign, whatever it is. We're trying to prove ourselves in most of the world. But when I realized it's not about me, like if I shine the light just on me, one person gets lit up. If I shine the light on everybody else, I light up everybody. You figured that one out, your life will change dramatically. All the things that you ever dreamed of, wanted, will almost just fall at your feet. It's almost like you're in the Matrix, right? It's kind of weird, but yeah, it's not about you. It's about other people. You still have to take care of yourself, as we spoke about earlier, but it's not about you.
So much advice for our listeners there about career, about purpose, about helping others, about give back, and then not forgetting yourself. Super stuff. Duane, I can't thank you enough. Goes all the way back to giving me that opportunity to stand in front of you and all the folks that you worked with. And you've inspired me and been a great mentor. And I appreciate the time on this podcast. I know our listeners had to have loved it.
Well, I'm humbled, honored, and it was a privilege to be here with you, my brother. Anything you ever need, anything your audience ever needs, just let me know.
Appreciate it. Have a wonderful day. Thanks so much.
You too. Bye-bye.
In our conversation, Duane talked about his purpose to help others and never giving the same presentation twice. And that leads me to my one last thing. If you want to be an influencer, realize that every audience values something different, and staying authentic to them is critical. Consulting or speaking or leading isn't about a handbook that tells you this is exactly what you have to do. It's actually about compassion, concern, care, commitment, and conviction wrapped up to deliver a custom experience for everyone you see in your audience. In coaching people to become a better public speaker, I never talk about making them the best public speaker. We focus on making them their best public speaker, because everyone deserves something special and unique from an experience with you, not the same cutout. So think about what the experience you deliver to others actually is, no matter what it is that you do. Make them feel special. Make sure you focus on the feeling they get from the time they spend with you. I hope these thoughts and the things we discussed in this interview will help put you on the track to success. And if you have a guest you think belongs on Tracks to Success, share it on our Twitter site @TracksToSuccess. We read them all, and I can't wait to hear from you. Until next time, I'm Kraig Kann. Thanks so much for listening.
You've been listening to Tracks to Success, brought to you by Presentation Partners, visual storytellers passionate about connecting presenters with their audience. Don't forget to subscribe to the show for more great interviews and thoughts on reaching your highest personal and professional summit. You can follow Kraig on Twitter and Instagram using the handle @Kraig Kann. And for exclusive Tracks to Success content and news about our upcoming guests, you can find Tracks to Success on Twitter. It's @Tracks to Success.